Right, we are live, and tonight I want to get into plant training. So, what we have going on here, I have pre-gamed, I've smoked a little, I got edibles right over there, and I might take one probably halfway through the stream. And I also have this almost empty bottle of wine, and then a less empty bottle of wine, which is brew, baby. Let's go. So that means it's stream time because I'm about to get cross-faded and talk about plant training, and it's actually really perfect, a really perfect topic for the live stream for this timing because my plants are right before the point where I'm going to be applying the first training. Now it's probably still going to be a couple weeks, but in plant time that is really fast. So I'm going to take a little sip here. And this is s'more wine, and holy shit, if you guys are seeing it and you think it is a meme, it's so good. I definitely recommend it. You can pick it up. We get it at Meyer, so they could probably hold it at your local Meyer. But getting into plant training, want to talk about low stress training and high stress training. Those are the two main training types you're going to be seeing. There are other things like if you count the flush as a training, or if you count like changing the light as training. There are things like that that are kind of uh, extra, but we're going to talk about the hands-on, actually manipulating the plant type training, and see where the conversation takes us, because I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be doing with them soon, and then I think we'll just go on from there through the veg stage and then into the flower. We'll talk about the little bit of training you can do in that stage. So without further ado, what am I going to be doing to these plants in a couple of weeks? Well, they're getting to the point where their original serrated single finger leaves are getting really big, and you can see those on my X, which I don't have a link for in this description, but in the description of my main videos you can find it. Or if you just look up Cannabis Express 420 on Twitter, also known as X, you will find me pretty easily there. So I recommend you go check those out because I don't post plants here very often. Regrettably, I wish I could, trust me, but I do need to work with YouTube to discover a new audience and all that stuff. But we're getting to the point where they're going to be starting to grow their true leaves that have 3 fingers or more. And once we get to about the third node of those, the first training I'm going to be doing is basically a plant bend. And since I'm growing in a closet especially, it's going to be very critical to tackle the training very early on and make sure they stay low to the ground and stay squat so that we can build as many branches and as many nodes in the lower part of the surface area, build a large canopy, and that is going to be starting in the beginning. Because once you get to the point where your plants are starting to grow super tall and their stalks are getting extremely thick, it's really hard to manipulate that plant. You're going to have to take your time. You're going to have to be extremely patient. And even if you take your time and are super patient, there is a huge chance that that plant will just snap. So going on with this video, don't forget to hit the like if you're getting value out of this stream. I really appreciate it. Helps out in the YouTube algorithm as well, and it's just generally a feel good thing to do. So if you're getting value, hit that like button. But we're going to tackle this early on. How are we going to do it? I'm either going to use skewers and like twist ties. You can find garden ties at like hydro stores and whatnot. You can use those. They're not going to bite into your plant, which is why they're perfect. There are other things you can do like pieces of wire or like paper clips, but those have a higher chance of having your plant grow into them, especially if you're not being super careful and you're letting them go a little bit too long into their growth with those there. But we're going to bend them down. We're going to make sure that none of the leaves are touching the soil. That's going to be very important going forward and all throughout the grow. You don't want your leaves touching the ground directly. There's going to be a super big highway for like bugs and just more surface area to get them onto your plant easily. But Going on from there, oh, also, it's a huge mold hazard. So even if you don't believe that it's going to increase your chance of getting bugs, there is a chance that you could get mold on your plant, and then that could just go throughout the entire thing and infest your boys, or well, your girls. Infest your girls, straight kill them. So, a couple of huge things that bending the plant over does. One, which is my favorite, it will get light into the lower nodes a little bit more directly so that your plant will actually send more energy towards those tops and kind of balance out the growth with the top. Because if you bend your plant over, well, we're going to bend it over this way just for the sake of demonstration. So when you bend your plant over, and let's say my knuckles are nodes going down the ridge here, and this is the top of your plant, what will happen within a couple of hours is your plant will start to bend up towards the light. And while your plant is bending up towards the light, so are these other nodes that are all down your plant. And then what will happen is it will start to grow over time, and then you will have tops come up like this. This isn't a very good visual representation, but if you hit the link below, I have an entire training playlist, and you guys can check these plants out and really get good visuals on what a trained plant looks like. Because up until recently, I've trained all of my plants very early on, and I've trained every single plant. And a lot of people will decide to grow a seed and like let it do its thing and show off its characteristics as it genetically would, let's say in nature. But I like to maximize my stuff right out of the gate. Maybe that's a bad habit of mine, but I've never had real bad experiences with it. It's just if you start to notice bad things happening to your plant, like they're not taking the training well, is making them super depressed, droop down a little bit, or they start like being super weak. Sometimes they don't recover super well. You might want to think about either not doing training, dimming down your training, or do a different kind of training. Just change something up a little bit in the training regimen. But another thing that you can do, which I don't think I'm going to be doing, very early on, as early as the third to fifth node, you can top your plant and just cut the top straight off. Now, again, this is going to be very hard to demonstrate. All these things are going to be hard to demonstrate verbally, but I'm trying to do my best. Whew. So, topping your plant, what does it do? What's the effect? How much stress does it actually cause to your plant? So what topping is, we're going to use my finger as a representation again, with the nodes as the joints. Topping would be just coming up here, taking off your top node right at the beginning of the growth. It's very important. You should not need scissors to do a topping. You can do a micro topping, which is taking off the very, very top node and not the first two, not the first three, the very top node that is just at the beginning of its growth. Take that little sprout off and you'll cause way less damage, because this is a high stress training technique, and it's one of the first that you can do when you're doing training. Now there's things like lollipopping that you can't really do. That is also a high stress training, taking off a lot of the plant mass, and then super cropping, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. So once these plants go through their veg stage, I'm going to be doing low stress training all through the veg stage. I'm just going to be bending those branches over, tying them down, getting more nodes, and just increasing the surface area. And overall, since we're going to have more branches and more nodes, we're going to get more yield, and it's going to be amazing. So whether or not you count it as training, it's kind of training. Transplanting, super important thing you're going to be doing throughout your grow. If you grow from a solo cup, you're going to at least transplant one time, because you're either going to put it in the ground or you're going to put it in another pot. Either way, transplanting. And even if you put it in your final pot, you're still going to be causing a little bit of stress to your plant. But there are things you can do to lower the stress, like use mycorrhizae, or if you're me, just not really have a lot of trouble transplanting in the first place, and for some reason be super blessed that your plants don't exhibit a lot of stress. Now, it is going to stunt your plants for 3 or 4 days probably. Most likely, I've had it happen before, but it's not super often that I notice a huge uh, growth problem and recovery time. And also, when you top, I don't think I mentioned it, it'll be another like 3 days for your plant to heal and then start to grow those nodes up. You might be concerned when it's not growing right away, but it's just putting its energy into healing. It has a very small body, very fragile. Do not be concerned. Let me catch my breath real quick. I've been talking for a long time. Anyway, yes. So how are you guys doing? Are you guys doing any training on your plants right now? Here, give me a second. I'm taking my sweatshirt off. You guys doing any training on your plants right now? Where are you guys at in your growth cycle and whatnot? Oh man. All right, so talked about transplanting. Super cool. One thing that I like to do right before flower, other than do lollipopping, which I'll talk about right after this, but super cropping is super cool. Now, how I would define super cropping itself as a technique is it's kind of like the plant bend method, except at this point, instead of just bending like the top couple inches or like just getting that plant soft in your hands and twisting it around and just really making everything inside the plant strong. Um, Getting into plant anatomy real quick, I want to touch on this just so the rest of this makes sense. Inside your plant, there is a tiny little pinhole, or at least hopefully it's a pinhole and it's not like a straw. There's a tiny pinhole, and this is actually caused by rapid growth. The more, the higher diameter that hole is, the less and less your plant is actually being able to uptake nutrients, because what's happening is the plant is growing quickly and it's not growing inward, if that makes sense. It'll start super open and it'll close up over time, and the longer it compresses, the longer it grows. That's going to thicken that up. Now, that's super important because that membrane that's just inside the skin of your plant or inside the bark, depending on how you want to look at it, that is actually going to be your nutrient highways where everything passes through. And a lot of people think that the straw is actually sucking up water. That's not the case at all. It more seeps through the plant, through that membrane. And that's why that membrane is super important. And low stress training like that, where you're twisting it, making it soft, that is breaking the membrane inside of it, and it's basically bleeding internally. And then what that does is it basically does the same thing as when you're building muscles. You'll get the micro rips in your like muscles when you're going to grow them, and then they heal back even stronger. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for at least low stress training, is because not only will you increase your yield, not only will you increase your surface area and plant mass overall, but you're actually making your plant millions of times healthier by doing that, because you're slowing down that growth. And not only are you slowing down that growth because of the little bit of stress you cause, but you're also making it grow stronger. And that is something that is admirable. And there are also good visualizations for super thick branches inside some of the videos down below, where we talk about plant training for like 20 videos or something. It's really awesome. So I definitely recommend you guys check that out after the stream for sure, if you're still not tired, even though it's probably like 3 in the morning almost now. But super cropping, you're bending in a very specific area. Getting back on track here, I feel like I'm giving you guys whiplash with how much I'm changing topics. But if no one's going to correct me, and you guys don't want something super specific covered, if you do, let me know in the chat. I'm always looking at and responding to that. So if you guys want to talk about a specific type of training, definitely let me know. But I'm going to talk about the topics that are right off my head. Super cropping is when you take your branch and basically where you lollipopped it, where you stopped the lollipopping, I'll do like a big bend right before the flower stage and just make it like a 90-degree crease just to open that plant up a little bit more. And at that point, you can tie it down to the pot itself and hold that branch a little bit lower, and that'll basically be a low stress training that will get you a lot more tops. And why it would be important is because, again, the light's going to be hitting it more directly. If the light is hitting it more directly, your plant is going to see it as a top because it's going to be doing a lot of photosynthesis. And that's pretty much all it is if you can get the photosynthesis going on that bud better, the plant will put more energy towards it because it's absorbing more light, so it needs more nutrients. That might be wrong, but I'm right for the wrong reasons if that's true. So the light hitting it will make it do more photosynthesis. It'll get more energy to that bud, and I just got my train of thought back, and then it fucking ran away. This is what drugs do. So stay off drugs, stay in school, okay? Because I'm having really smart shit. But what I wanted to say was the light intensity will be different because those lower buds will still be farther away because of that top coming up like this. This will still be higher than these, so these won't be as big, but they will be bigger than had you not super cropped, if that makes any sense. But that is something I did with my wedding cake, and it had dense buds all the way down, and they were like golf balls. It was crazy. Whew, it was nuts. I love super cropping a lot. And those genetics in particular, all the buds were super dense, but the ones that were seeing the light, they got the mass. So if you want buds to get massive, you need them to have, you need them seeing the light, is what I'm trying to say. The bottle is now empty. The s'mores bottle. It wasn't that full. It would not have filled up a glass. Whew, so that's not too bad. But lollipopping is something I also do 2 weeks before flower. I'll do the super cropping, and then I will do a I'll do a lollipopping first, and then I'll do a super cropping a couple days later, and that'll be 2 weeks before flower, just to give it a little bit of recovery time so it can focus on the stretch and can focus on the bud growth. But with lollipopping, the way I like to do it is remove every single node either halfway down the plant or the bottom 2/3 of the plant. Now that's going to depend on your genetics and how much they're going to stretch, which if it's your first run and you have your your from seed plants, holy shit, I'm having a hard time right now. If you have your from seed plants, it's going to be very tough to gauge how much your plant is going to stretch. But the general rule of thumb is that it's going to stretch to 150%, if not 2 times its original size from when you put it in there. And it will stretch for the first 2 to 3 weeks of flower. Sometimes it'll go 1 week, sometimes it'll go 4 weeks. It really depends on your cultivar and how long it's actually going to flower for, either 7 to 12 weeks. Sometimes I've had plants go out to the 13th week because I was like, nope, not developed enough, needs a 13th week. And that's not unheard of. I've heard of plants flowering for 14 weeks. Whew. But that would be a super long flowering cycle. Normally stuff's going to be 8 to 12. So that's a general rule of thumb. And basically what the lollipopping is going to do is it's just going to get rid of a lot of the stuff that's not going to give you what you're looking for. It's either going to be larvae, it's not going to get the light, so it's not going to develop trichomes, it's not going to be potent. It's barely going to look like weed at all, and you're just going to be sad that you left it there. And the energy that those were taking up are going to go to the top. So you want to get rid of all this wasted energy and let it all go up top. So you give it the 2 weeks of recovery time, and then it's ready to go into flower. Now, I mentioned that flowering, we can do a little bit of training there. We can do a little bit. And if you want the maximum results out of your plants, you better be training your plants until you start to see bud growth. Did he say, yeah, until you start to see bud growth? You're going to be doing low stress training, but you're still going to be doing training. Now, you can do this either with or without a trellis net, and it will work out just as well. Because if you don't use a trellis net, your plant's going to hold up its own weight, and you're going to want it to be strong so it can actually do that. The branches need to be thick and happy and robust and just ready to take on the day. So, for the first couple of weeks of flower, when you flip your light, you're going to be going in there and you're just going to be twisting those tops. You don't need to do much. You just need to twist the top part up until it gets too thick for you to do it easily. You're going to want to be patient. You don't want to snap anything at this point. So if you're a beginner, maybe don't do this. But if you have been doing your due diligence and you've been training through the veg stage and you have a good feel for your plants, even if it is your first try, you should be good if you know how your plant responds to the stress. Because in the veg stage, it's a great time to practice these techniques, because if you break your plant off, you just did an accidental topping and that's it. No need to panic, no need to be worried. And actually, I have a video, I don't know if it's in the playlist, but I do have a video that teaches you how to fix your cannabis plants if you do break it off in a place you did not mean to. And you can just tie a little piece of electrical tape over it and make sure it's good and bandaged up, and that plant can recover. It won't always, but it can recover and regrow, and it'll have a big old knot where it was. Similar to how you like break a bone and it re-heals stronger so you don't break it in the same place. That's kind of what's going on here. So you're going to do the low stress training, and that's going to make it robust and able to hold up its own weight and get all of the nutrients into the buds like we were talking about earlier through those nutrient membranes, and your plants are just going to have a great time. And if you go through the training and your plants are strong and capable and ready for flower, you are going to have a great harvest every single time. Whether or not you like how the weed turns out, it's going to be great for what it is, guaranteed. Because, man, I don't personally like a lot of terpene profiles, but they do have the presence and they are intense, similar to how someone would like that if they liked it. Like a gassy, I'm not particularly into it, but if I smoke a gassy weed and it's like a potent flavor, I know I did a good job because the terpene level is high, if that makes sense. I can enjoy weed I don't necessarily enjoy. It's a very weird complex, but hey, I'm going to eat a gummy real quick. You know what? I'm just going to get the package. Give me a second. All right. So the gummies I have, they're a THC, CBD, and CBN. And I looked it up. Unfortunately, CBN has similar effects to CBD, so basically it's useless for getting fucked up, but they are like cannabis PM, it says, so indica, and then they're strawberry kiwi flavored. And each gummy only has fucking, what, 5.5? Yeah, 5.49 milligrams of THC. So it's not 5, and it's not 10, which 10 is pretty common around shit. Uh, 10 is a pretty common dosage, so I'm surprised they didn't go with the 10, because now we're allowed to go up to 200 milligrams per package, and then that would be 20. We'll get this down the hatch real quick. Now, I didn't mention the trellis net so much, and a trellis net's actually what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a double layer trellis, And basically throughout the stretching, I'm going to have to just weave the branches through the trellis net, and then the trellis net is going to be holding up the weight of the plants, and it's going to create a higher yield. And I've done a similar technique with bamboo stakes and garden ties, and I've gotten some pretty great results. So I'm really excited to see what I can pull off with a trellis net. But we've been streaming for 25 minutes. I am absolutely baked and maybe a little bit tipsy. I'm really tired also, so I think I'm going to log off. But hey, thank you guys for joining. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, please smash that like button, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much.